everybody, Gina DeLuca here. Okay, today we are going to be doing, surprise, surprise, a spiral straight bore. I'm using these metallic colors. I'm going for this molten metal kind of look. And when I'm using colors like that are kind of in the same color family like this, basically a highlight, a midtone, and a shadow, when I get those Boulder cells, they look super 3D, super cool. So that's what we're going for today. For my background slash base coat, I have Arteza Mars Brown. I have found that most of the Arteza paints that I have used, and that would be opaque paints, non-metallic, that I have used for the background, I get good results. The only paint that I didn't get good results was Prussian blue, and I have not been able to get a good straight pour result with Prussian blue and with any brand. So that's the thing. For my cell makers, I have Decoart Americana Decor Matte Metallics in aged bronze, Decoart Americana Decor Metallics in soft gold, and in bronze. These paints have been mixed 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol. That mixture is then thinned with my secret sauce, which is just 90% water, 10% Floetrol. So paint and Floetrol, then add the secret sauce until you get the consistency that you're looking for, which is, in this case, about a 2 on my consistency scale. Let me try to find it, some light for you. So it does make a mound, but it disappears pretty quickly. It's making a nice, thin, even stream off of my stick. You want it to look like a pencil lead. You don't want it to be wobbly, thick and thin. That means you need to mix it more. But this is what we're going for. Before we get started, have you seen the Fluid Art inspiration cards? If you have, you can fast forward about a minute, but if you have not, what we have are 52 cards. There are 42 technique cards. Each technique card has an associated video here on YouTube that gives you all of the information that you need, the exact paint brands, the colors, the consistency, the recipe, the technique, all of the things that I can't fit on a card. This is the painting that's in that particular video. This box here contains a tip for that particular technique. Here at the bottom, you have the color palette that was used in that particular video. And these 2 boxes can be used together as the basis of a 2-color palette, or you can build off of those 2 colors. And there are 8 bonus color palette cards. Each one has 5 color palettes. You can use all of the colors or just some of the colors. And you can mix and match the bonus color palette cards with the technique cards, and you have more combinations than you could ever paint in a lifetime. These are available at my website, ginadeluca.net, and also at amazon.com. The first thing I'm going to do is put some paint in my cup. I'm putting about 2 ounces in there. Those paints need that background color to react with. And I do that because I have a tendency to overpour my base coat. And I have, in the past, not had enough for my pour. So that kind of negates that. Or mitigates that. So you'll notice that I have already covered my edges. The way that I mix a straight bore is pretty thin, and especially with Floetrol, sometimes you don't get the greatest coverage on the sides. So this just helps to prevent having to touch up your sides later. And we use a base coat because your paints need something to slide around upon. If you don't have a base coat, something has to stick to the canvas first, and that is going to be the paint that you poured. That's going to be your puddle, and as you tilt it or spin it, the paint that is on the edge of that puddle is going to be the first thing that touches your canvas, and so it's going to stick to the canvas. And then the paint that is towards the center of your puddle is going to roll over top of the paint that was on the edge. This can really mess up a good composition because sometimes, especially in straight pours, the coolest things happen on the edge. This is also one of the reasons why I use a base coat that is the same color as my background color. The background color is the first paint that goes in the cup. The base coat is the first paint, or is the paint that goes on the canvas. So if you don't have a base coat, you really lessen your options. Okay, let's pop these bubbles in the base coat so they don't pop up through my pour. Another reason why I use a paint that is in my pour, regardless of the technique. There's no white in my pour paint, so I'm not going to use white as my base coat, because if I do wind up with bubbles in my base coat, if I miss some and it pops up through my painting, then I'll have these little tiny annoying white cells that I will feel inclined to fix later. So I like to avoid having to do extra work after my painting is done. All right, let's put some paint in a cup. I am going to pour from up high. I want these paints to sink into that background color. Always check your consistencies before pouring. The sauce may thicken upon standing. Pouring from up high, letting it sink, and then as those other paints come in, those paints will mix and churn and give gradients of these colors. They'll attach to each other and give you those amazing boulder cells. So I usually do, as far as the order of my paints, I like to have the paint that has the most contrast with the background color. I want to put that one in last. So if I have a light background, the darkest color goes in last. If I have a dark background, the lightest color goes in last, because for some reason, a tiny bit of that last paint ends up at the bottom of the cup. And when it ends up at the bottom of the cup, it ends up in the center of the painting. And in this style, the center of your painting is your focal point. Okay, I'm going to put a bit of this leftover paint on top, so all of my cell makers are touching some of that background paint. In order to make the cells, it needs to be touching that background paint. I have done paintings with nothing but cell makers and nothing happens. I have cat hair. No shortage of those around here. Get your schmutz as soon as you see it, because it will do bad things to your painting. Okay, I'm gonna pop these bubbles one more time, because there are always more bubbles. Okay, I am going to pour quickly, spin slowly. I will be spinning clockwise. And I'm going to do my best to be as much in the center as humanly possible. Okay, here we go. Oh, clockwise, clockwise. I spin slowly because if I spin quickly, I will just wind up with a ring pour. And it will look less like a spiral and more like a ring pour. As I get towards the end of my cup, I will get closer to my canvas. Waiting for that soft gold to come out. Come on, baby. Here it comes. And I like to get at least 1.5 turns in once that last color starts coming out. That is kind of the magic Fibonacci 1.5. That's what will really give it that spiral effect. And I'm gonna take a point off for that dismount. Although now the inside kind of looks like a caterpillar. Let's see. I'm just going to probably regret this. I'm not gonna mess with that too much. Okay, let's pop the bubbles. So one thing that I have noticed is these Decoart paints, when they have been sitting for a while, they don't seem to have quite the same cell making gusto. And 2 of the paints that I used, I have no idea when they were open. I think I need to start putting dates on them when they've been open so I can kind of start gauging what's that magic number. And oh, I forgot to tilt my cup because on these square canvases, sometimes it needs a little bit of extra love on the corners. So I'm actually going to take what is left in my cups. I'm just going to add it. It's probably off camera. I'm adding it to that pouring cup. So I have a little something for the corners, should I need it. As I let this paint puddle percolate, my work surface is not even, so I kind of have to keep this moving. And it doesn't take a lot to do those corners. Literally just what I scrape off of the cups is usually enough. Okay. Popping bubbles. So one of the reasons that I pop these bubbles, as mentioned before, when the bubbles come up, they bring paint with it, just like if it were your base coat and the bubbles are coming up. The same thing is happening with this puddle. Because these Decoart paints have a hydrophobic effect, matte paints mixed with glossy paints have a hydrophobic effect. That's why they make those groovy cells. But what happens is once they pop up, they push that paint away. That's what hydrophobic means. It doesn't like water. It's pushing it away. Not that it doesn't like water in this case, but it's very nerdy stuff. Fluid dynamics. But basically, it'll push those paints away and give you these cells. And if you allow the cells to develop before you stretch, you'll wind up with bigger cells. If I were to have tilted this right away, these are probably the kind of cells that would come up, and that's how big they would be. But because I let them happen first, now I can stretch these out. So we'll see what happens. A lot of times, once I stretch it, more cells pop up. As this top layer gets thinner, it allows those other paints to come up. So let's give this baby a spin. Let's see what happens, shall we? Okay. And you don't have to spin fast. I can see this side is, need to even this out. I'm just going to take what is left in this cup, and I'm just going to give these edges a little bit of love, just so I don't have to worry about it. Doesn't have to be perfect. These are going to get stretched, probably disappear, but just in case, this gives it a more organic look. Looks like it's part of the pour, not bikini corners. Okay, more spinning. You don't have to spin fast. A lot of people think you have to spin fast. You do not. It will get there. Okay, let's see. I want this corner to get a little more action. So I'm going to push that corner out using centrifugal force here. So if I want this edge to get more pushing, I will push the canvas that way on the spinner. Think of it like, you know, the merry-go-round at the playground. Whoever's sitting on the outside of it is going to be getting a lot more spin than whoever's sitting in the center. So that is kind of how you can direct your paint on a spinner. Now, I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose that. And if I keep spinning, I'm going to. I'm just going to touch this edge up just a little bit. And I'm just going to grab some of the paint that has dripped, fill in anything that doesn't look like it got enough love. And these paints will keep developing. They will keep, or the cells will keep developing. Just grabbing some of these drippings, getting those corners. Just giving it a more organic look on those corners. Okay. I am going to let this sit and do what it does, and we'll see what happens. I'll bring you back in a few. Okay, here it is. I am not anticipating many more changes, if any. But we certainly have cells. But I can tell that the bronze and the aged bronze, which were both already opened, did not do a whole lot of work here. This is very heavy on the soft gold. Still has a 3D effect. Just not quite as much as usual, not quite as much of that molten metal effect that I've gotten in the past. So there is something about the freshness of the paints that make a difference. If you've been having issues and you're using old paints, that could be it. And as always, my camera is very confused by these metallic paints. But there it is. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. Please do like, share, and subscribe and all that good stuff. I was planning on making some announcements this week, but the week got away from me. A lot of stuff going on here. But I will tell you that I will be teaching at the Fluid Art Experience in April in Seattle. So do check that out. Check out that website. I will put a link in the description box, but I will be teaching you how to do this in person. I will be showing you straight pours and cloud pours and basically just how to get cells without using silicone. So if you would like to take in-person classes, do check that out. Check out the description box. Also for my affiliate links. I am an affiliate with Arteza and Decoart. If you want to try their paints, please use the affiliate link, and there's coupon codes as well. I receive a small commission at no additional cost to you when you use those links provided in the description box. Good way to help a sister out. And also in the description box, you will find a link to my website, GinaDeLuca.net, where you can find my art and music and the Fluid Art inspiration cards for sale. And you will also find the link to my PayPal tip jar if you feel so inclined. Thank you to those who do that. It is appreciated way more than you know. And you will also find the link to our Facebook group, Go Make Some Art. Join us there, post your masterpieces, get your inspiration, get questions answered. One-stop shopping. A good time is had by most. It's the internet after all. There's some cranky folks out there, you know. But mostly it's all fun stuff. But there it is. That is it for me for today. I hope y'all have a beautiful day. Now go make some art.